Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're a coach who's gearing up for your ICF credential, you've probably asked yourself, what are the assessors really looking for? Well, it's definitely not just about ticking a bunch of boxes. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the whole ICF assessment process and really understand that journey from just being competent to achieving true coaching mastery. And that's really the big question, isn't it? Lots of coaches can show you the core competencies. They know the moves. But what is it that transforms a coaching session that's technically correct into something that's really profound and game-changing for the client? What elevates it to an art form? The source material for this has this brilliant analogy of two dancers. First, you've got the student dancer. They're technically perfect, polished, professional. They hit every single mark. It's a good performance, for sure. But then you have the master dancer. They don't just perform the music, they become the music. There's this grace, this ease, this fluidity that just turns the whole experience into something powerful. And that is the exact difference assessors are looking for in your coaching. Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the ACC, or the Associate Certified Coach level. I want you to think of this as building your foundation. At this stage, assessors are looking for crystal clear evidence that you're technically competent and, just as important, that you're operating from a solid coaching mindset. It's really all about getting those fundamentals right and doing it consistently. So the ACC assessment is basically about climbing this ladder. Insufficient, well, that means a behavior is just missing. But sufficient means you've hit the mark. The real goal, though, is to keep climbing up towards proficient and extremely proficient, because that's where assessors start to see not just your competence, but the beginnings of that dancer's ease and fluidity we were talking about. So here's a perfect example of a sufficient response. Let's say the client has a little breakthrough, an insight, and the coach follows up with this solid, competent question. It absolutely does the job. It meets the standard. This is our polished student dancer hitting their mark perfectly. Good stuff. Okay, now look at this. This is where things get really interesting. See the jump in sophistication here? This isn't some generic question you could ask anyone. The coach customizes it by weaving in specific detail the client just mentioned. Joe, Janet, their expressions. It's not a formula. It's a completely tailored response built from the client's own data. And that shows a much deeper level of listening and presence. So let's move on and see how this builds to the Master Certified Coach, or MCC level. This is where that dance analogy really comes to life. The expectation here shifts a lot. A competent dialogue just isn't enough anymore. Assessors are now looking for that emergent, collaborative dance with your client. Right, so at the MCC level, any hint of a formulaic, by-the-book approach just falls flat. The coach has to be so present, so attuned to the client, that the conversation just unfolds organically. You're not following a map anymore. You and the client are literally creating the path together, moment by moment. Now, check out this MCC sufficient example. The coach is picking up on way more than just the client's words. They're noticing a somatic response. The client's hands are moving, and they bring that right into the conversation. It's a specific, customized observation that invites the client to explore what's happening for them on a much deeper level. And this just brilliantly illustrates that final leap into mastery. The coach doesn't just talk about the client's gesture. They might subtly mirror it themselves. They state what they see, and then they just hold the silence. They create this powerful space for the client to actually be in that experience, rather than just thinking about it. That is the embodiment of the dance. So, if moving up the scale isn't just about learning new techniques, what is it? Well, it's a fundamental shift in your mindset. It's all about how you show up as a coach, on the inside, long before you even say a word. At the very heart of this mindset is this one single concept, partnering. What does that mean? It means your own brilliant ideas, your own feelings, your own desperate need to get it right, all of it gets completely bracketed or set aside. Every single thing you do, every question, every reaction is in service of the client's world, their agenda, and their exploration. You are 100% focused on them. And these are the internal states that actually make that true partnering possible. It's about deeply believing the client is the expert on themselves. It's about knowing your own triggers, managing your emotions, and using that intuition you have purely for their benefit. This is the inner work that creates that outer mastery. Now, this all sounds great, right? But how do you actually get there? How do you cultivate this mindset and develop these skills? Let's break down the practical path forward. This is the question for every single aspiring coach tuned in right now. That journey from being the student dancer to the master artist, it's an active one. It takes intentional practice and some pretty deep reflection. So where do you even start? Here it is. This is your roadmap. First, you have to do the internal work to truly embody that coaching mindset. Second, focus every single session you have on mastering that deep, client-centric partnership. And this is critical. Get support. A mentor coach is absolutely essential for sharpening your skills and techniques. But coaching supervision, that's where you do that deeper work on your own self-awareness, which is the very foundation of that ease, authenticity, and fluidity in your coaching. And let's end with this incredibly important reminder from the source material. Your potential might be huge, your knowledge might be vast, but on assessment day, none of that matters. The only thing that can be evaluated is what you actively demonstrate in that recording. Your artistry has to be seen and heard. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What is your next intentional step on this journey from competence to artistry? If you want to dive even deeper into all of this, I highly, highly recommend the book, Becoming an ICF Credentialed Coach. That's where all of today's material came from. You can find it on Amazon and other great bookstores, and be sure to visit becomingacredentialedcoach.com for more fantastic resources. Thanks so much for tuning in.